Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. It is Wednesday, right? Still, we're in Indianapolis. I've officially lost track of days. This is our Wednesday edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe with Mary Kay Cabot and Ashley Bastock, like I mentioned. We're all in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. And today we heard from Catherine Raish, who's the assistant GM. We heard from Kevin Stefanski. So let's just kind of go takeaways style here. Everything's on the table. Mary Kay, give us a takeaway from today.
Well, I'll start with Kevin Stefanski's interview. We had him at the podium, and then we had him for a sidebar interview after that. We covered a wide range of topics, and of course, Deshaun Watson is always the biggest topic of all. So we got him going a little bit on Deshaun Watson and what the new situation is for him and what the outlook is. And one of the takeaways from that, I thought, was how much Kevin really praised Alex Van Pelt and why he thinks that Alex is going to be a really, really good fit and a good quarterbacks coach for Deshaun Watson. And I kind of agree with this. The more I watch what Alex Van Pelt has been able to do in his career with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, when he worked with him for 4 years, Aaron Rodgers absolutely loved having Alex Van Pelt as his position coach. He's a former NFL quarterback. He understands the mindset. He understands the position. And, it's a different vibe in the room this year now without Drew Petzing and with Alex Van Pelt in there. And then they added also sort of an up and coming young offensive assistant in Ashton Grant. So, it kind of informs what's happening with Deshaun now in the quarterback room, what it's going to be like, with a backup, a new backup probably coming in there, and sort of the state of the art of the room.
The quote here from Kevin that really stood out was when he said, he was asked about Alex Van Pelt. First thing I would tell you is Alex Van Pelt's one of the best teammates I've ever been around. Talks about him being in the quarterback room, and then also mentioned him taking a step back last year so that Drew Petzing could have that opportunity to be the quarterback's coach. And, of course, that led to Drew getting an offensive coordinator job this year in Arizona. I just thought the way that Kevin talked about Alex today, Ashley, was a little more than just like him as a coach. He really did seem to talk about that. Just that teammate line really stood out to me in the way he described it.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about how Kevin is with his leadership style before, obviously, and how that was a huge draw to the Browns hiring him in the first place. And I think you really do kind of see that in the way he talks about his assistant coaches. And I think Alex Van Pelt, is a guy who around the league has kind of earned that respect. And I think, too, a part of the reason, and Kevin, mentioned it today, is the fact that he's been there before. He's played quarterback. I think that allows you to relate to these players in a different way. And I don't think it's a necessity by any means, but I think it definitely helps, and it helps, him. It helped him throughout his career kind of find his style and earn this respect. And, the Aaron Rodgers thing is obviously big. So I think that's, a guy who has more than paid his dues, and it's definitely appreciated by Kevin. And I think he goes the extra mile to publicly show that appreciation with these guys sometimes.
Mary Kay, is Alex kind of I don't know how to describe him but we know Kevin is sort of, we've talked about it, he has a lot of influences, but it still feels like at his core, he is the zone blocking, loves the 13 personnel, 12, loves the big personnel packages and doing funky stuff with those. Is Alex sort of the necessary opposite to Kevin in some ways, in sort of his background and kind of where he comes from?
Well, you know what? I think that he, like Kevin, is very well versed and coached up and honed up in the West Coast system. So is Bill Musgrave. And I even asked Kevin about this today. You guys are all so West Coast. How is this going to work with a completely different kind of quarterback that's going to be doing different things? He's a dual threat guy. You're going to have to do, all different kinds of formations and personnel groupings and all that sort of stuff and plays. And Kevin basically said, they all have so many different influences in their careers that he thinks that they can bring anything to the table. Whatever is going to be best for Deshaun is what they're going to do. And I think they're flexible in that regard. And when he talks about the team thing that you brought up with Alex Van Pelt, all you have to do is look at the fact that Alex Van Pelt has never once said anything about wishing he could be calling the plays. He's never mentioned it. He's still here after, 3 solid years. They're going into their 4th year now of Alex Van Pelt not calling offensive plays. That's a team player for you right there, right? And Kevin reiterated that he is going to call the plays. And even though we've asked him that, this off season, it just kind of reinforces that, yes, he is still going to call the plays. But I don't know that they are, offensive opposites necessarily. I think they have a lot of the same things in their repertoire. And I think that they're both open to growth and open to anything and everything that it will take to get Deshaun Watson to play really well.
Yeah, I mean, the path to being a head coach.